ZeroPage Homebrew, your best source for the newest Atari games.
Welcome to ZeroPage Homebrew, your best source for the newest Atari games. And today, we're not really going to be playing any games because we have an interview today with Zachary Scolaro, developer of PXE and Chameleon. We're going to learn all about it. This tech makes me want to program with this new environment. It's so powerful, but we're going to learn all about that. But first, I want to thank the Twitch subscribers who are scrolling right there. The newest Twitch subscriber, Ricardo Pim, thank you so much. And the newest Twitch follower, Zotal Squared. And if you want to support the show, you can just hit subscribe. It's free with Amazon Prime, or you can just follow us so you know when shows like this come up live. Or you can subscribe on YouTube and watch it later. So, no news. We're just going to jump right into the interview. Fairy schedules. No, we don't have a co-host today. No name up there. And no cats either. The cats are locked in the bedroom because the hallway is full of new paint and we don't need the cats turning white like in the cartoons where the cat rubs against some paint, becomes a skunk. We don't need any of that. No. So we're going to jump right into the interview. So I would like to welcome Zachary Scolaro, Zack Attack from Phantom Logic Studios, creator of PXE, pronounced Pixie, and Chameleon Cart, and developer of games such as Mattress Monkeys, Octopusher, and Elfin Squirrel. Please welcome to ZeroPage Homebrew, Zachary Scolaro. Welcome, Zach.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I'm very excited to have you on. I know we were supposed to have you on months and months ago, but we had kind of an impromptu, unexpected break towards the end of last year. And then the Atari Homebrew Awards were right after that. So it's a little bit delayed, but the tech's still good. It's still working, so still very relevant. So I'm very happy to have you on to talk all about PXE, Elf, VCS, and the Chameleon Cart. So welcome. Oh, are you frozen? No.
Sorry. Yes, thank you.
So for people who are unaware or people who are underinformed, like myself, because I want to learn all about it, please can you explain what PXE is, what it stands for as well, Elf VCS, and the Chameleon Cart, and also the motivation behind creating PXE and the Chameleon Cart?
Okay, so that was a lot of questions at once.
It's a lot, yes. But just a quick overview. We'll get into the details later.
So PXE came about because I was talking to some other developers who were working with Atari Basic and DPC Plus, and just from that discussion, it kind of raised the question of like, well, what could we do with this Elf format that we already have in the Chameleon Cart? And so I was like, well, wouldn't it be funny if we just emulated the processor of the Atari in the chip itself, in the cartridge, right? And then you could just utilize all the kernel technology and everything that you get if you were to go to make a game on the Chameleon Cart, but then you could still write everything in Atari Basic.
Okay, so the Chameleon Cart came first then, before PXE.
Right.
So what was its original intent? Just a development card, another board to be able to use for games?
So the reason Chameleon Cart exists was I wanted to make games, and there wasn't any like good sources of ARM chip boards. Like there was no website where you could just go to and say, okay, this is how much it cost, right?
True.
Like, there's no details on the specs. It just nothing like that existed. I wanted to know that if I go spend the effort and I make a game, that I'm gonna have everything I need to go publish this game, because I don't want to make a ROM only. I want to have a physical release. I want it to be on a
Right.
cartridge, in a box. A proper release. And so, since there was nothing there to make that happen, I went in and I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to learn how to make circuit boards, and so I went
Jeez.
in and I designed a new circuit board.
So do you have a background in hardware, or did you like just learn this for this? You must have a background to be able to develop that board.
Right. So I'm a software engineer by trade, but I'm also educated in electrical engineering.
Yeah.
So the only part that I really had to learn was just the CAD software for the actual circuit board design,
Okay.
and just everything that goes along with actually getting something manufactured. And
Yeah.
there was quite a few iterations. I've got boxes of prototype boards just laying around everywhere, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do
Oh,
with those.
I bet that's a normal process for anybody developing hardware for any system. You've just got so many iterations. And luckily, there's lots of avenues for getting PCBs done nowadays that are quite affordable.
And that was one of the goals, right? Like, I wanted the boards to be good boards, but also
Yeah.
cheap enough that you can buy the board, buy everything else you need to make the proper physical release, and still have a little bit of margin in there. So, I mean, obviously you're not going to get rich making Atari games, but you should at least not lose money on it.
That's at least the goal, is to break even it at minimum. Yeah, because nobody's getting rich. So was Mattress Monkeys the first release of a game using the Chameleon Cart?
It is, yes.
Okay. So
That one's a lot of firsts, because
yeah.
it's the first one, not only with the Chameleon Cart, but it's also the first one that has the extra software in it to try to detect the 7800 and improve the graphics
Yes.
when you're in a 7800.
Yeah, we'll get into that later and take a look at Mattress Monkeys and how it does it. I mean, we've interviewed you at PRGE about Mattress Monkeys and did a demonstration there, but it would be good to talk about that again. And we'll also, of course, get into the Chameleon Cart, which is right here, and take a look at that in both systems too. So can you tell me who was involved in developing and supporting the technology in terms of like software and hardware throughout the history of the development? Because you can't do it alone. There has to be a big support team in terms of like, emulation and programming and just putting this all together. So what are some other people that you've worked with behind the scenes to make this happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot of people behind the scenes helping to make this happen, and especially now that it's starting to go more mainstream, and having more people with dev kits that can help test, and so that we can work on the firmware and be pretty confident that it's going to work on all the systems. Because there's always a little variation, and especially with the
Yeah.
7800 mode, which we're doing something that was never designed to do, and so just getting as much testing out there. So on the emulation side of things, Steven Hillsberg, Jet Set Illy,
Yep.
so the Gopher 2600 emulator, and then also the Test 7800 emulator. He's been fantastic. There's so much stuff that I don't think I could have got it done if he wasn't supporting me with all the changes to the emulation. I'm constantly asking him, hey, can you fix this, or can you change this? Can you add this? It'd be great if it did this. And he's always able to figure something out and just make my life way easier.
Nice. And you also work with 8-Bit Poet, who's in the chat as well, correct? On making games?
So he's the other half of Phantom Logic Studios.
Yeah.
And he's the reason that most of our stuff has reasonable names, because my names are always terrible.
Yeah, and he spelled it out there as well. Phantom Logic's extended elf kernel, PXE. And does that kind of play off the elf acronym as well? PXE and elf, both kind of magical creatures?
He might have to answer that one. I think it's just a happy coincidence.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Again, he's the naming guy.
Yeah. So elf is actually quite old. I looked up 1998 when the first release of elf. So how does your elf differ from, I think you called LVCS? How does that differ from the original format of the ELF, or is it like a sub format?
It's not so much a subformat. It's just it's using the ELF file standard, and it's just a certain library is assumed to be there. And so the reason we did that, and so there was quite a few people involved in this,
Yeah.
because with the Plus card and the Uno card and everybody that's been involved in those projects, and
Right.
prior to ELF, there was some effort with the Uno cart to run custom code, right? And in fact, that's why we're able to update the firmware, is because we were able to slip that in at the last second before they started shipping them. And so
Nice.
the problem with that is it was tied to the Uno cart, and if you wanted to have something that could run on the Uno cart and the Plus cart, it wouldn't work because they have different pin mappings from the ARM chip to the cartridge, and they may be using different amounts of flash and RAM and stuff. And so we were talking about, how can we allow people to make games that use the ARM chip, that run on the ARM chip, or accelerated by it, but how do we still make it so that it's a single file that you can run anywhere, right? And so the natural conclusion was, well, let's not reinvent anything. We can just use this existing ELF file format. And so we're making a relocatable ELF file. And it's just so happens that it's targeted for that specific ARM architecture. And the only thing that's left unlinked are those VCS lib functions that are specific to the Atari. And so then every firmware, every cartridge firmware that wants to support this VCS ELF, if you will, it needs to have a way to implement all those functions. And then when it loads in the ELF file, it does the relocation, and it maps, okay, every time the program, the game wants to do this certain thing, this is the firmware code that it's going to run. And so it goes and it modifies everything as it loads it into memory so that it's good to go for that specific system.
And are you referring to, like you were talking about the Uno cart and the Plus cart, they were kind of separate, and they have a unified UCA now so that both can be updated at the same time? That was great.
Right, and I still have both, and so I use those regularly because they're convenient when you're testing. Of course, eventually you got to test on the final hardware on the Chameleon cart, because the Chameleon cart is way slower than the Plus and the Uno carts.
Oh, really?
So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and I mean that comes back to the costing, right? Because the Uno and the Plus cart you're going to buy at once.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas if you're going to publish a game and you're going to make thousands of copies or hundreds of copies, depending on how optimistic you are across enough games, you're going to have a lot of copies, right?
Right.
It makes a difference between does that ARM chip cost $2 or does it cost $5?
That's right.
Especially when you have a minimum on how many boards you can build at once.
So you've pared down essentially what the Uno and Plus cart can do. Obviously, you've taken away the Wi-Fi module, the SD card module, all the things, and stripped it down to the bare minimum so that it can run. Does it have a different ARM chip than the other two as well, or is it the same or similar?
It does. The Chameleon cart has a Cortex M0 Plus, and then the Uno and the Plus cart I think are M4 with floating point. So they're significantly more powerful than the Uno and the Plus cart.
Okay. So there is a possibility that somebody could make a game for the Uno or Plus cart that wouldn't work on the Chameleon.
One of the demos that you have for later is one such case of that.
Okay. Yeah. So how the Chameleon cart works, or PXE. Now, a bare metal game on like the 2600 looks up an address on the cart's ROM, gets the instructions and executes them. Can you talk about how ELF, PXE, and Chameleon differ from the existing programming frameworks like bare metal or DPC, DPC plus, CDF, CDFJ, CDFJ plus, and bus? Because when I was looking at Asteroid Miner in Stella,
right,
and watching the code execute, it was like loading the code as it was executing, and my mind was blown. It was like people that use ZeroPage to like load in custom kernels into
Right.
ZeroPage to run really fast. That's what it reminded me of.
Right. And that's the thing with the Chameleon Cart, with the ELF technology, you're essentially dynamically generating the instruction stream for the microprocessor in the Atari. So
Right.
rather than having a static ROM with, this is the program it's going to run. And so now if you want to do something 10 times in your assembly code, you need to have a check for some condition and a branch, and that takes up cycles in the Atari,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But if you can just dynamically generate 10 store instructions instead,
Oh, so
you
good.
could do that thing 10 times without that extra overhead. And so, in fact, the kernel that's used in PXE, I think it's writing like 15 or 16 registers per line.
Oh,
And
it's a
so if you do the
dream.
math on
That's so
that,
good.
it's more than you should be able to do. like
Oh,
even if you just did nothing but load and store instructions, you still wouldn't have enough time to do that many writes. So there's
wow.
a lot of sorcery going on there.
That's awesome for developers to be able to push the 2600 further than ever before, and in turn the 7800. Let's can you tell us about the environment that people are going to be working in when they are working with PXE and Chameleon carts in terms of like hardware and software, like multi-carts, emulators, consoles. So what is compatible with ELF and PXE, and the Chameleon cart is part of that. But what will people be using? Like I'm running it obviously in a standard 2600 console. I'm able to use Stella to play Elf. So what are some of the programs and platforms that it can be used on?
Okay. So from the, I guess we'll just cover the whole pipeline there.
Yeah.
The start is you're going to be developing locally, and you're going to build something, and then you're going to run it in an emulator. So you've got Gopher 2600, you've got Stella, two good options there that you can test locally.
Yeah.
And then at some point you're going to want to test it on real hardware. And so for the general game logic and just make sure the game behaves the way you think it can, any of the Uno or Plus cart multi-carts, those are good options for, you can take that same bin file, copy it over to one of those and run it there so you can run on real hardware.
Yeah.
And you can also share that bin file so that other people can beta test your game as well.
Yeah.
And then before you want to do a physical release, you want to do some testing with the actual Chameleon cart, because again, it's a slower chip. So something that might work on the Plus cart may not work on the Chameleon cart. You might find that maybe your game logic takes more than the time allotted per frame, and so you need to spread it out or you do some other optimizations, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you'll want to do that. And then of course you'll want to recruit as many of your friends as you know that have a Chameleon Cart dev kit, or a PXE dev kit, so that they can test it out as well, because the Atari Juniors, those things are notorious for having problems. You just look at
Okay.
the thing funny and it won't load. In
Yeah,
fact, I have an
that's a
Atari Junior that's awful.
and that's good that you have an awful Atari Junior, because when I've done testing for games, my system has always been an outlier and weird, and so it's actually been an advantage to have kind of a bad system in terms of for testing, because it's going to find the bugs that are going to come up on maybe other people's system. Because there's going to be 10 out of 100 or even 1 out of 100 people that you're going to sell a cart to in retail form, that's going to go, it doesn't work on my system, and you're like, oh no. And you want to eliminate as many of those issues and weird consoles as possible. Like even like the add-ons for the ColecoVision that you can run 2600 carts in, or the Intellivision, or obviously the 7800 in 2600 mode, even as far as like the 5200 2600 adapter. Yeah, there's a lot of variations out there.
Yeah, at some point it becomes unrealistic to have every console to test with, and you got to just get it out there
Yeah.
and get the community to help you out. So, like
Yeah.
PAL, Mattress Monkeys, I
Right.
attempted to make it auto detect PAL versus NTSC, but I didn't do it right. But I also put in the menu so that you could override it because I knew that it was untested. But now we've got people with Pixie dev kits all over the world, and we can test it in PAL now. So
Nice.
Pixie does do the auto detection properly now.
Oh, that's super awesome. That's going to be great for developers and distributors. Not only them having to make 2 builds of it, but distributors having to make 2 different cartridges and sell them separately, and keeping track of them. It's just one cartridge, you pop it in, and to that effect, Mattress Monkeys even goes further. It runs on the 2600 and 7800 too, so it's got like so many different detections in it.
Yeah.
I have a question from Dionoid, who is in the chat. He posted it in the Atari Age forums. He said, really looking forward to this. I'm hoping the price of Chameleon boards can come down a bit, as ordering from Europe tends to be quite expensive due to shipping costs, import fees, and VAT. Are there any plans for stocking Chameleon boards in the EU, in a store somewhere in the future, or a distributor, maybe not even like a public distributor, but just somebody who has a big stock of them so you can ship it once there for developers in the EU, for our pals?
Right. Absolutely. That is definitely something we've been looking into, and so we're happy to find some kind of partner. It's still something that we're exploring, and we don't have any solid plans yet, but it is something we've thought about, and we do intend to do. The Atari Age is another one that we've been working with, and so we've been working to get them a supply of boards as well, so that if you develop a Pixie game and you want to publish through them, they'll have that capability as well.
So let me show the 2 places that people can get the Pixie boards right now. So one of them is obviously Phantom Logic. Oh, I lost you. Let me see if I've got a better one. Interview with... there we go. Oh. Interview with... That's way too tiny. That's way too tiny. Let's fix that right now. There we go. So one of them is Phantom Logic Studios. They're able to get the Chameleon boards from there. There we go. So they can get them in batches of 25 or 50. So this is obviously for people not only just wanting to develop games, but to actually distribute games.
Right, absolutely. And that, like I said, that was one of the criteria. Was I wanted something out there where you could just go to a website and see, this is how much it's going to cost me, so you can actually figure out, if I go build my own game, this is what it's going to take to do that, right?
Right. So it comes out to about just over $10 a board, which is not too bad for all-in-one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
we've been trying to explore reducing the minimum amounts, like to offer smaller but still maintain like a reasonable price.
Right.
It's difficult because the price of the components fluctuates. Like when we first started with Mattress Monkey and we started getting ready to build everything, COVID hit, and then that just destroyed the price of everything. So
right.
All my calculations ahead of time were completely off, and everything turned out to be way more expensive. And then now we've got AI driving up the price of everything again. And
yeah, it's always something, isn't it?
yeah, so we're trying to make it attainable for everybody, but still maintain the good quality, and then also not be constantly having to follow the market up and down either. We want to be able to build enough boards ahead of time that we've got the stock, and we can confidently say, yeah, you're going to be able to get it for this price. You're not going to plan stuff out, and then by the time you're done with your game, now the boards are 20% more, right? Like we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, especially if you've announced the pricing ahead of time, and then you're like, oh, now I'm losing money on every single card I sell, and that would be very disappointing. So you also sell the Pixie Dev Starter Kit, and I picked one of these up at PRGE last year. from Atari Age, and I'm just going to go up to the camera and show everybody this so they can see what comes with it. So you get the Chameleon Cart, plus you get a programming adapter that just fits right onto the side of it, and you just hook up your ST-Link to it. Oh, there we go. And it was very, very easy, and it just worked right away. When I loaded something onto the Chameleon Cart, it was like instant. Loaded it on, very easy to hook it up to the computer. So those are available through Phantom Logic, and they were at the Atari Age booth. Are you selling these through Atari Age as well?
Yes, Al does have some, and I believe he intends to continue having them available at his booths as well. So if you go visit them at a show, then you can pick one up there as well.
Don't have to pay for shipping. So yeah, it says bring your Pixie-powered creations to life on real Atari hardware. The Pixie dev kit includes a 128K Chameleon Cart board and a dedicated programming adapter, providing the essential hardware for testing or refining Pixie kernel games on authentic 2600 and 7800 consoles. So 128K is the maximum size of a game that can be put onto the Chameleon Cart.
It's going to be a little bit less than that because you need the firmware too.
Okay.
And so that's the size of the memory that's built into the ARM chip. If you look at the board, you'll see that there's spots that are not populated. And so
okay. Oh yeah.
So there's future plans, right? And so rather than making more revisions of boards, we put everything on that revision. But the future plan is to start populating everything but the Wi-Fi module. And then the Wi-Fi module will be for if you want to release a physical game that has network connectivity, or if you just want to like be super overpowered and you use the Wi-Fi module as like an extra coprocessor, that's an option too. But I expect that one will be rather rare, and so you could just source those and solder those yourself because they're fairly easy to hand solder.
Okay.
But moving forward, what we intend to do is any new boards we build, we're going to populate everything but the Wi-Fi module.
Oh, nice.
So all the passive components like the resistors and stuff for the Wi-Fi module will be there. And then also we want to start including some additional flash memory so that games don't have to be limited to that size.
Oh, great.
And that'll also help with saving back to the cartridge as well. So that's one of the things that we've added to the Pixie in one of the more recent builds is there's now the ability to save data to the cartridge. So if you want to save high scores or save your game or whatever, you can do that.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I was thinking, if they put a Wi-Fi module, you can upload your scores to a central scoreboard automatically. Also, obviously, multiplayer games. Nothing's been proven yet on the 2600 that it can handle real-time games, but turn-based games, that's obviously no problem. I'm still looking forward to the first one. I remember playing Combat, somebody modified Combat. It was many years ago. And Darcy and I played it at separate houses.
I remember watching that episode.
It got out of sync very quickly, but we were able to play it for a very short amount of time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to more multiplayer games on the 2600 because the Atari 8-bit line has the FujiNet able to play like there's card games, there's Battleship and stuff. So let's bring that to the 7800 and 2600. That would be amazing. Oh, and Bachman 50 said extra flash for digital audio. Oh.
Yeah, Mike's been great in helping drive the features of Pixie, and I mean he makes some awesome games with it. They just look amazing.
Yeah,
so
and we'll take a look at those.
Wait to see what he does with the extra flash.
Yeah, and it's great you've built in this potential expandability and features into the Chameleon Cart. for forward looking and people who want to experiment, push it even further rather than starting off small. You've thought forward thinking before people actually do it, which is great. So let's talk now that we've covered what what it does work with. What is it not compatible with? Because a lot of people have some newfangled 2600 and 7800s out there that have HDMI out that might be like, should I, what can I do? Can I play these games in the 2600 plus and 7800 plus?
Right. So with the Plus consoles and also with the Retron, those are not traditional consoles. All they do is they have some extra hardware to dump, to attempt to dump whatever game you put in as a ROM,
Right.
and then run it in an emulator. And since the whole idea behind the Chameleon Cart is it's dynamically generating the ROM that the game is going to play, that the console is going to play, it doesn't really work well with that type of strategy of let's dump and emulate. So there are some approaches. It's something that we were most of the way through Mattress Monkeys when the Plus consoles got announced, and we found out, hey, there's going to be this new console and it's going to work by dumping and emulating, and that's we knew right off the bat that's not going to work with what we're doing. So
different approaches to playing games. Yeah.
It actually understands when it's in one of those consoles.
Okay.
And it puts itself in a special mode where it can actually dump the ROM out. It'll instead of dumping out the actual game itself, it'll dump out the ELF file that was used to build the cartridge.
Okay.
So that it could theoretically be run in an emulator.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen yet, right? The Plus consoles don't take advantage of that. But we had built that into the Chameleon Cart. So I was hoping that somebody would do that and that would get implemented, and then Mattress Monkeys would work on the Plus consoles eventually.
Right.
And so we've been in communications with the guys over at PlayOn and providing them sample code on this is how you activate that dumping mode, and this is how to do what they need to do to make that happen. We've also been looking into other options. We have some other ideas. I don't want to get into too much specific details because I don't know exactly what's going to work and what's not.
Yeah.
But I believe that we'll be able to eventually do something so that all the Chameleon Cart based games can work on those consoles.
Oh, nice. And through a dumping feature or actually communicating over and doing calculations on the Chameleon Cart. Yeah.
So I'm not sure which way will end up being the way that we do. There's a lot of factors there, which is why I don't get too specific. But I will say that my preference is to be interactive with the cartridge, because if you have saving to the cartridge, or if you have Wi-Fi or anything like maybe you want to make a game where it has a high score and you have some kind of crypto built in so that you can have anti-cheat, right? Like you have the physical cartridge, everything's on the cartridge. You can prevent people from cheating, right?
Yes.
Like if you make it dumpable, then you defeat
it's
that,
all
right?
there.
So I would prefer it to be interactive with the cartridge so that all those cart special features can still work. Mike had suggested, why not add some LEDs to the cartridge, because you can, if you have a transparent case, you can have, the LED could indicate something. Maybe you have an RGB one and you can have it change colors depending on your health or something, right? Like, so there's lots of stuff you can do with the cartridge where if you dump and emulate, you lose that capability.
That's true.
So,
yeah, you wouldn't be able to retain your high scores or communicate with a server or anything. So yeah. And do I said, is Mattress Monkey supported on the Plus systems now? And you said kind of, it dumps, it maybe, or no?
So when it detects that situation that it's in a console that's not a regular console, that it's something that's emulator based, it'll provide it with like a 2K ROM, and all it does is say update required.
Oh, okay. That's good, even if there isn't an update yet.
Right. So hopefully there'll eventually be an update so that that it makes more sense.
Because technically it's true. An update is required. Whether or not it exists or not, it's still required.
Yeah, but I think we should have been more specific because there's confusion. Like, do you need to update the game or do you need to update the console?
Oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so
Updating
we
the
should have
game's
been
a
more
whole
specific
different.
that the console firmware needs to be updated.
Yeah.
And once it's available.
So,
yeah, that's a lesson learned.
let's show the Chameleon Cart in the 2600 right now. You've given me instructions to load a very simple program onto it that just basically displays an image, but it was like proof of concept. It's like it works. So maybe you can step us through how you load your images or how developers can use the Chameleon Cart in conjunction with their PC, because I believe you can keep it hooked up to your 2600 and your PC at the same time.
That's how I do it. And you should make sure to only power the cartridge by either the console or either the SD Link, but never both. So if you're going to leave everything hooked up, you just simply don't connect the 5-volt power from the SD Link.
Now, what would happen if you did accidentally leave the 5-volt on there? It would overpower?
I mean, in theory, you might break something. I have definitely done that by mistake on occasion, and so far I've got away with it.
Okay.
But still would be advisable to avoid doing that if you can.
Highly recommended not to.
I mean, maybe you'll end up needing a new Chameleon Cart to develop with if you do that too many times.
True.
Or worse, who knows?
So let me power this up again. So it says Chameleon Cart when you power it on, and there's a chameleon. So how do you load your programs onto the Chameleon Cart? So I've got the hookup here. So what do you need, and what programs do you need?
So right now, we're relying on all the ST Micro tools. So the ARM chip that's used in the Chameleon Cart is from ST Micro, and they have their own IDE, and they also have their own programming. So you would conceivably install that, and then with the Pixie game, the firmware is built into the build process. So when you build a Pixie game, it's just like building any other Atari Basic game, except it doesn't output just a bin file. It also outputs an ELF file. And so the bin file runs on all the multi-carts and the emulators and stuff like that. But then that ELF file is the combination of the game, the bin file, and the firmware specific to the Chameleon Cart. So that gets bundled together. And so now you have an ELF file that's ready to go. So you don't have to bother with all the extra tools for C++ and stuff. You can just take that ELF, and all you need is the programming app, and you can go and run that and load it through the SD Link onto the cartridge. And then once you just simply power cycle the Atari and let it boot it up, and play your game.
Oh, nice. That's very instant and very simple to do, because that's what I did. I loaded up the ST programming program, just plugged it in USB. It found the port, the COM port, and just pressed upload and then popped it into my system. It was very, very simple. And I guess the other side of it is just programming it, outputting the file, and then picking the file to upload.
Right.
And Bachman50 is being awesome in the chat and providing all the links for people to go check out the tools and pages. Thank you. So can you talk about a little bit more about the dev board here and the components on it? Because I see two. So there's only two things populated right now. So I guess one is the ARM chip.
Yeah, so one is the ARM chip, and the other one's just a power converter, because the ARM chip runs at or requires a different input voltage than the Atari provides. So it's just a voltage regulator. So and so the dev kit includes the Chameleon Cart, and it includes the programming adapter, but the Chameleon Cart is no different than the released ones, right? So if you were to go buy 50 and make your own game today, the cart would look the same.
Right. And that makes it simpler for you and for developers to know that, if I flash it to this, it's going to be the exact same board that people are getting. It's going to work in both because there is no both. There is just one. So that's really smart. So you even have the programming port on the distributed games, so that if it needs to be reprogrammed for any reason, like there's a bug or recall or what have you,
Right.
it can be done fairly simply by sending it back and just reprogramming it. Is this the standard way to program the carts then? Is by hooking up the programming module?
Yeah, so if you're going to go publish your game and now you're going to make 100 copies, you would just simply program 100 of them the same way you would your dev one. There's
Yeah,
no
and it's
difference
fast.
there.
It's super fast. So you just go click, it's done like instantly.
So Mattress Monkeys was a little bit of a different design, and
Okay.
the idea was we'll program it through the cartridge connector itself. And so instead of using the ST link, it used a serial port on the connector itself, and that turned out to be super slow. It took me like 2 days to program all the Mattress Monkey boards for the first release. And so when we revised for this one that we're using with the PXE now, I made sure to have that extra connector on there because I wanted it to be fast. So yeah, so that plus it gives you the opportunity to also do more advanced debugging. So with the PXE games, you really don't have to worry about that because you're writing the code in Atari Basic, and so you're not going to really make super bad crashing bugs. But like when you're working on the firmware and stuff, and you get a boot failure, and you're like, okay, well, there's 100 things it's doing before I see anything on the screen. Where did it fail?
Oof,
Having that ability to connect that ST link and go look at the state of the ARM chip and figure out, where is it stuck? That's huge.
Oh, okay. So you can actually see things through the ST link and know what's going on. Oh, that's great.
You just can't do it more than once because as soon as you pause the ARM chip to see what it's doing, it's going to lose sync with the Atari, and the Atari's going to crash.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it's easy enough to restart it, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, if it's already crashed, then you're not losing anything anyway. So
No, you're not going to make it much further than that.
exactly.
So since the Chameleon Cart can be used both on the 2600 and 7800, so I'm going to boot it up in the 7800 now. I think it still loads up in 2600 mode, this program. That
It's
I
been a
uploaded
while.
on
I
here.
don't even remember if that one is set up for dual or not.
I don't think it is, but so I won't do it. But there's some connectors missing on the PCB for 7800 compared to a regular 7800 cart on the sides, right?
Right.
What are these used for, and does it impose any limitations that other 7800 games would have?
So the extra connectors in the 7800 include some extra address lines, which we can work around, so that's not a huge deal. But there's also an additional audio input, and so we're missing that. So using this technology without the extra connectors, you're not going to be able to have like any additional audio hardware on the cartridge.
Okay. So are you stuck with TIA, or is there some workaround that you're able to put a Pokey or a Kovox or, the thing that was used in Ricky and Vicky, things like that?
It's something we've been looking into. 'Cause I view the Chameleon Cart it's a 2600 cartridge.
Okay.
It happens to have better graphics on a 7800, but my perspective is it's still a 2600 game. Everything was designed within the limitations of the 2600, and it's very limited amount of sprites, how stuff needs to be spaced vertically on the screen, and the fact that it can have lots of colors, but it can't have lots of resolution, right? So it improves on the 2600 graphics, but it's still basically a 2600 game. But there's nothing to say, take the existing Chameleon Cart, add the missing parts, and make it a 7800 only cartridge.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. that makes sense.
So that'll probably be something we do eventually, because and again, I'm hinting at what's to come here, but one of the demos, which is only a 7800 demo, like it would make a lot more sense for that to be a dedicated 7800 cartridge.
Yeah.
Because you're simply not going to have that game on the 2600.
Okay, so possibly in the future you'll have two different boards. For maybe you can just have it be them snap off if you need it to just be a 2600.
That would most likely be what happens.
Right.
Just make them all 7800 and then you just snap them off when you want 2600.
Which seems crazy, but yeah. ITC says one of the extra pins is the audio input. Yeah, so he was correct on that one. And also a question from Ivory Tower Collections. I think it was on the Atari forums, or maybe it was Discord. It's a great idea to see a game do this, which he's referring to 7800, 2600 detection. But another method needs to be devised to do detection, or it needs to be made clear that if you have a console that isn't using a stock BIOS, the game may not work properly. Or will only come up in 2600 mode in the case of Mattress Monkeys. I wish he could find a new way to do the detection, since his games do not work on a 7800 with alternate BIOS installed. So maybe you can talk about how the detection is done on the 7800 to know, and 2600 to know what system the card is running on.
Okay. Yeah, so when the Atari first boots, right, the processor has to go look in the ROM and say, where do I start at, right? So it's got that reset address, and it's always read from the same spot. Now on the 2600 and the 7800, the difference is that the 7800 goes to the BIOS first, like it has the BIOS mapped into the address space instead of the cartridge. And so from the cartridge's perspective, the reset address is actually a different address. Like one of the bits is cleared instead of set.
Okay.
So instead of seeing 1 FFC, it sees 0 FFC. So looking at the reset vector, that's how the cartridge knows, is this a 7800 or is this a 2600?
Okay.
So once it knows it's a 7800, it needs to tell the BIOS everything the BIOS wants to see, because the 7800 does checks. It makes sure that there's a cartridge in it. It makes sure that it's a valid 7800 cartridge. It checks in the NTSC 7800s, there's a crypto check, which is quite challenging with without those extra address lines, but it's doable.
Okay.
And so we know enough about the BIOS ahead of time that the Chameleon Cart just pretends, right? And that's where it got the name Chameleon Cart, because it's trying to appear like something it's not.
Okay.
So it pretends that it's a 78 cartridge because it's able to trick it. And so because of that required knowledge of the BIOS and very specific things that the BIOS does, anytime you have a custom BIOS, we have to now know about that and handle that as well, right?
Okay. So you would need a list of all the BIOSes and how they talk, and be able to include those in your detection scheme.
Yeah, in my understanding, there's like one or two like really common ones that most people have, and so I think if we just get the major ones, then that'll cover 99% of the people. But the nice thing now is that we have these dev kits out there, and so if somebody has one of these consoles and we don't yet handle it, if they have that dev kit, we can start sending them new versions of firmware to try, and they can test it, and I don't have to try to get a hold of each one of these systems.
Well, ITC in the chat would be the person to send one to. He's got multiple BIOSes. He says one thing that'll help is that all of the modified BIOSes remove the NTSC encryption check. So that's one thing that you would have to take into account. So I'm going to boot up Mattress Monkeys to show people who have not seen this magic, this absolute magic that you built into the Chameleon Cart, that when you put it in a 2600 system, it boots 2600 game. When you put in the 7800 system, it boots the 7800 game. And this is the first game ever released, ever to do that, I believe, right?
As far as I know, it's currently the only game released that does that.
Oh, first and only. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the 2600 first so that people can see. Phantom Logic 2024. There we are. And you can see 2600 graphics, like people expect. And so let's switch over to the 7800 now. I will switch inputs. That should be it. Same cartridge, different program loaded. Absolutely astounding. It's awesome to be able to distribute the same game for two different consoles. Is there any way to boot the 2600 version on the 7800 console?
So there's not. That's something that we might try to enable in the future. Because I have had some people ask about, I'd like to do that. Sometimes I just want to play the 2600 version. So
right.
It probably need to be one of those settings that you save back to the cartridge because it needs to know at boot time that that's what you want to do.
Oh, yeah. Like included in the program itself, it's like force 2600, reboot, and then you set force 7800 or something like, or go back to normal. Yeah.
And so I should mention too that this is not something that's limited to the Chameleon Cart, right? The technology behind that, I've been working on porting that to the Uno and Plus carts as well. And so I don't think that's something we were able to demo today.
Right.
However, we have some private builds that we've been testing, and we need to pick back up on that. But eventually, we want to get it to the point where you can boot up your Plus card on a 7800, and it'll start off in a mode where it's not chosen a system yet. And then depending on which binary you choose, it'll lock into 7800 or 2600 mode. And then from that point forward, you'll be limited to those system games until you restart the console.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because that's going to be important again for, you want to get your game out there to beta test and whatever. And if your game has this dual graphics capability, you want your beta testers to be able to test both versions as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. That's really, really awesome. So we have some demos of PXE technology that I think will make people really excited about the abilities of PXE and the Chameleon Cart. And so these are from Mike at AEI, that's the name on the Atari Age forums, but in the chat it's Bachman M50. And let me show you where it is. Actually, I'll link it in the chat so people can, that is you. So people can go to it, download them themselves, and they can load these on the Uno Cart or Plus Cart, which we're going to be demoing them on the Uno Cart right now. So let me switch over to that. And the first, actually, I'll show you the website first. There it is on the Atari Age forum. So we're going to see 4 different templates, he's called them. So, and they come with source code, so people can run them, alter them, build upon them, incorporate them into their own games. These are all Atari Basic examples. The first one is 17 sprites in all sizes, multiples with masking. And this is really, really impressive. All of them are really impressive. And may spark people's imaginations of what they can do with it. Okay, so let's load up this one. Let me switch over my system here. My display so I can see it too. So I've got the Uno Cart going. So 17 sprites built with PXE. So here we have a whole bunch of sprites. You can press down the button and move the blue guy anywhere you want on the screen. And we've got a set of red guys up top, green guys on the bottom. Now pressing up and down without the button puts them over top of each other, and which incorporates some intelligent flicker. So you can tell they're both using the same player character. And the second player character is the blue guy. But I was amazed by the small amount of time that it needs to incorporate the flicker into it. I think it's just 4 lines, maybe. And it goes like in between the sprite. It doesn't just take up the whole sprite.
3 lines. There's a 3-line gap if you want no flicker at all. So as long as you have at least 3 lines between the sprites, there will be no flicker. Wow. Nice. And then, as you said, when they start to overlap, only the part within those 3 lines will start to flicker. So if you have a tall sprite, and that was one of my biggest complaints about previous kernels is if you have this giant sprite and it barely overlaps another sprite, then the whole thing starts flickering. It's like, man,
yes.
Why not only flicker the part that overlaps? Because that's all you need to do.
Yeah, so it gives you a lot cleaner visuals in terms of flicker, and it's really, really beautiful. Yeah, so so
this demo does a great job of showing that.
Yeah. Let's go to the next example. I think the next one is 8-way scrolling. So this may remind people of a certain game made by Mike. I believe this one. 8-way scroll. Yes. Very reminiscent of Asteroid Miner here. Giant pixie on the screen there. So great for space games and shooters as well, or any kind of things with a huge amount of space. 8-way scrolling on playfield, and there you can press the button and leave a tracker. I guess it's beeping and stops beeping when you go off screen. Really, really great. So these demos are really nice to showcase different types of games that you might make with PXE. Let's go to the next one. Playfield indexing. Oh, didn't like that one. I will try that again. We might have to skip that one. Oh. Doesn't like the output. Saw it for a second. It's very cool. You basically you can manipulate the playfield as if it was a character and move it around the screen. And it's too bad it's not working. But people can check that one out on their own. Not sure why it's not working. The last one is the Starfield. Moving around a ship. And there's so much going on. The color changes on, I believe, the ball character making those diagonal lines. And the ship is made up of 2-player characters. You can shoot. That must be a missile character coming out there. Yeah, all the demos can be found in the Atari Age forums. That is great. Oh, Thrust asked a question. is there Luma boost when flickering, or is that something that you would have to program yourself?
There's not, but that's a good idea and something that we should add to the kernel. Because the flickering is done automatically by PXE, so we would need to modify PXE itself to do that.
Right. Because I'm making my second game, and I do have some flickering, and I'm going to incorporate Luma Boost in it, because it really lessens the effect of the flickering, because when you're flickering, you're only getting half the frame. So for the people who don't know what Luma Boost is, as if I said it, everyone knows, is that you increase the colors, the intensity of the colors just a little bit to offset the 30 hertz flicker. So it reduces the impact of the flicker, and it's quite helpful. So these are really impressive demos. So these are all things that you can make with Batari Basic, correct?
That's right.
So how much of the instructions are kind of built in? You said the flickering is a built-in thing. So how does that work within Batari Basic programming this?
It's no different than any other Batari Basic kernel. You've got X number of players. I think we're at 16 right now. So you put the players where you want them, and it'll figure out which ones need to be flickered and which ones don't. And so I mean, you should still make a point to not overlap all 16 on the same line, because obviously that'll be terrible flicker.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I read somewhere, like in early days when you were showing off PXE, is that people were able to convert their DPC Plus programs fairly easily over to PXE kernels. What is the process for that, and how painless is it to kind of make the transition for people who understand Batari Basic into using PXE instead of the default, I guess, the DPC Plus?
Yeah, well, I think it's easier because, as Mike just mentioned in the chat, there's no bank switching in PXE.
Oh, that's awesome.
Since we're emulating the 6502 in the cartridge, we just pretend that there's 60K of ROM, and so your game can just be in that space and no banks.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Not having to deal with bank switching or even understanding bank switching is just all there. That's really great. We have a question from Thomas. How much is PXE tied to Batari Basic? I'm guessing he's implying, and that's a question I also had, can you program PXE in assembly, other languages, and break out of the Batari Basic environment?
So that's a really good question, and it's something that I'm actively working on right now, because we have the main PXE kernel, and there's the score kernel at the bottom, and there's also like a very simple 48 pixel kernel that you can alternatively use as well. But people want more than just that, and you want to be able to mix and match, just like you can with the title screen and other Batari Basic kernels, where you can stack stuff up, and so we want to be able to make custom kernels, because right now, if you want to customize anything kernel-wise, you need to go modify the actual PXE framework, right? You're going to be in C and C++ code, and you're going to have to build the entire PXE thing. So what I want the ability to pick and choose which kernels. So you can take a bunch of canned pre-made kernels, stack them all together, make them arbitrary heights, and be able to switch at runtime too. There's no reason that you should be limited to your entire game has to be this multi-sprite kernel. If you want to have a cutscene with a 48 pixel animation or something, you should be able to do that, right? If you want to have a custom score at the top instead of at the bottom, you should be able to do whatever you want with it, and there should be no limitation. If you're comfortable getting outside of BASIC and you want to go and make your own custom kernels, you should be able to do that too. Now, the big challenge with that is we have developers on at least 3 operating systems, right? You got your Mac and your Linux and your Windows users, and the tool chain, setting up the tool chains for Batari Basic is pretty simple, right?
Mm.
You just need to run a script, and then you need to have, I think, some time installed now. And so it's pretty straightforward. And that's one of the nice things about PXE is there's no additional requirements right now. But to add in this new functionality and the ability to do custom kernels and everything, well, if you're doing a
Right.
custom kernel in C, you need a C compiler, right? And
Right.
setting that
Okay.
up to cross-compile for ARM on 3 different platforms, it's quite an undertaking, and it's not something that I want to push on to Batari Basic developers, right?
Right. Okay.
So what I've been actively working on is to create a container that has everything built into it so that your workflow, instead of installing Batari Basic, you would install Docker or whatever container service of your choice. And my preference is to just use Visual Studio Code and Docker because they have what's called dev containers. And basically, as soon as you open up your repository, it'll just prompt you, hey, do you want to reopen this in the container? And then boom, you're good to go. All the tools and everything you need is now in your terminal, and you can just run the makefile, and it'll just build everything. And you don't have to, okay, I had to reinstall my operating system. Now I got to spend 2 days reinstalling everything I need, and it has to be just the right version for this game to build. And then, I need to go back and revisit a game, and now I've got the wrong version of stuff. So it solves all that problems, right? And so I'm hoping that that'll be acceptable to everybody, and everybody will be happy with that. And I think it'll be good because now if you want to collaborate, right, and you put your game up in GitHub and somebody else wants to work on it or they want to help you debug it, they don't have to worry about setting up their local dev environment to match yours. They just run it and everything's built into the source repository.
Very nice. Pseudographics has a question. Would you be able to achieve more with PXE plus ASM assembly compared to PXE plus Batari Basic? And I'm guessing, Batari Basic has calls to built-in kernels that you're just invoking. And so are you able to put assembly in line with Batari Basic or
You can do
yeah.
inline assembly. What you can't do is control the kernel because the kernel is not anything that's running in the 6502. That's
Right.
custom ARM code that's feeding the 6502 the instructions. So
It's injecting
basically,
it.
when the
Yeah.
screen is visible, the ARM chip has control, and none of your code is running. And then after the screen's done and it goes into what I call overblank, the combination of the overscan and the VBlank period,
Yeah.
it goes and says, okay, I'm going to run that 6502 interpreter now. And so at that point, if you have inline assembly, you can do that.
Okay.
Now, what you can do with some inline assembly is you have better control over how you interact with the PXE framework. So you could do something like, hey, I want my sprite to be, my graphics data for my sprite, I want to put it in RAM and I want to update it on the fly, right? So you can make a dynamic sprite, and you would probably need to use assembly to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Outside the display kernels, your logic, is that done on the ARM chip as well, or is it a mix?
So everything is run on the ARM chip. So,
Okay.
but it's the ARM chip running your 6502 game logic.
Oh,
So the
it's doing it
6502
super
and the
fast?
Atari is basically sitting idle. I shouldn't say it's sitting idle. It's actually pulling the paddles.
Okay.
So the Atari is doing the paddle pulling, and then your game code is running on the ARM chip.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And that's another reason for trying to move to the dev containers is that way you can introduce your own custom functions. Especially with the scrolling now, and there's 16-bit scrolling registers, but everything in Batari Basic is 8 bits. So dealing with that is kind of clumsy.
Right.
And it's difficult.
Okay.
So being able to like jump out to C++ and make some custom functions for some of the stuff and then still rely on Batari Basic, I'm hoping that'll really integrate your super advanced Batari Basic developers that don't mind getting into the nitty gritty of things, and then your basic ones, right? They'll be able to collaborate and share and be like, hey, I made this cool tiled base playfield, that scrolls and everything, and you can reuse that in your game. And so I want to make everything easy to share.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that would be great. So people can develop their own shareable kernels and shareable, code for other people to use in Batari Basic. That's really great. 8-bit only position registers. Yeah, so no fractional positioning. Is that why people when games are made, some games are made in Batari Basic and things speed up, it just goes from 1 to 2 times and then 4 times for speeding up?
Atari Basic does have some fixed point support,
Yeah.
and in fact, I've been working on a tiled demo actually, and I've been abusing that because the 8.8 fixed point happens to be a 16-bit value. So I've been using that to do 16-point math, even though it's supposed to be a fractional. I've been treating it as like integers. And it kind of works, but it's not pretty.
Thomas has a question. Have you estimated how much processing power PXE provides compared to a stock 6507 outside the kernel? So, in other words, how much logic can it do? Is it like a 20 times, 100 times speed, 1,000 times speed?
No, it's probably, well, it's definitely more than 1 times. So it's more,
Okay. Yeah.
but I think it's less than 2 times.
Oh, really? Okay.
I really didn't spend any effort optimizing. In fact, there's like half the 6502 instructions aren't even implemented
Oh, okay.
because Batari Basic doesn't seem to use them. And so every once in a while, Michael will say, "Hey, my game's crashing," and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't implement that instruction. Let me go do that."
So it's an ongoing process. It's an evolving thing. So actually, what was the timeline? When was the first when was Batari Basic first modules released to work with PXE?
That was probably the middle of last year,
Okay.
I think.
So still fairly new, like pretty new.
Right. And I mean, I have the advantage that like everything I've done with other games and with Elf and so developing the kernel was pretty straightforward for me. That's kind of an art in itself because you got to think about everything completely differently. You have to optimize not so much on how fast my code can run, but how fast can I do this before the next time I need to feed an instruction to the 6502.
Right. Yeah. So you have to manage the differential speeds between the ARM chip and the 6502. So we're going to show something that's quite amazing right now. You've called it your Raycaster demo. And when I saw it, it absolutely blew me away that the 7800 could do this. It's unbelievable. Now, I will be running it on an emulator, but you can run it on the 7800. I'm just not set up for it right now. So maybe you can give a little background of what this is and how it accomplishes it before we give it a go.
Yeah, so during the process of trying to bring up 7800 mode on the Plus cart and the Uno cart, we needed something to test the 7800 mode. So I had previously done a raycasting demo to show off bus stuffing on those. So I was like, the only natural thing to do would be to make a new raycasting demo, but let's make it something that you can only do on the 7800 and only can do on the UCA carts, on the Plus cart and the Uno cart, because it uses that floating point. It uses that M4. Like it barely fits in there. I'm actually doing some of the raycasting during the visible screen.
Oh my
because
God.
there's not
Okay.
enough time in overblank. So
Wow.
half the screen is pre-rendered and then half the screen is done line by line just in time.
Oh, geez.
So it's really pushing the limits of what the ARM can do.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like, how far is it pushing it, and how much further? Like, my question about that is kind of null and void at this point. About can we go full 3D with this? It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe this is the full extent, but it's really impressive.
Yeah, and then this brings us back to that optional Wi-Fi module on the Chameleon Cart,
Okay, yeah.
because then you have the ARM chip talking to the Atari, and that Wi-Fi module has all the time it needs, and it doesn't, ideally you keep it at 60 frames per second, but it could buffer. It doesn't have to.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to load it up right now. This is running through Test 7800 emulator, I believe. Yeah. Okay, so let me just...
It's the older sibling of Gopher 2600.
Ah. Okay, here it is. Can't remember if there's audio or not. Don't think I have audio piped in right now.
I don't think this one has any audio.
Okay, good. Like super, super fast.
Yeah, so this is running at 60 frames per second, and
Yeah,
as you can see,
you can tell.
it's got textured raycasting.
Yeah, there's some walls that are dark, some that are lighter to give some perspective here. Now, is this a game? Because there was one coin. Are there any other coins?
Yeah, it's a whole maze that you can see at the top.
Oh,
There's
there we go.
indicators of the coins you've collected.
Ah, there we go. Okay, yeah, got the next coin. Should have started following the walls. Big open area. Tunnel Runner 3000. Yeah. Very, very impressive. Oh, there we go. Another coin.
Yeah. And of course, 8-Bit Poet, Matthew in the chat there, he's the one that helped me out with the graphics and all the textures and stuff.
Oh, nice. So Wolfenstein 3D is on the way then for the 7800?
So somebody's going to have to build it now.
Well, here's some incentive. Here's an example game that can be made. Yeah, this is really, really, really nice.
Yeah, and it's a decent sized map.
Can I clip?
But one of the things that was challenging with this is
No.
that when you get close to the coins, they need to take up like the whole screen.
Oh,
so now I'm trying to draw the raycasted background, plus I'm trying to draw this gigantic full screen sprite, and so that was a bit of a challenge, fitting that all in there.
See if I can find another coin to show that off.
So as far as the question about patterning the floor too.
Oh, yeah. Is that possible?
Probably could. It's already really tight on time right now. But again, if we move the processing to the Wi-Fi module,
right,
then you could definitely do like a full Doom type game. Like that would be no problem.
Was somebody complaining about the beautiful green grass on the ground? Oh, there we go. Now we're back in the other part of the maze.
It's a nice outdoor maze.
That's right. It's very comfortable on the feet. Nice soft grass. So I found half the coins.
So one of the challenges with the 7800 though is just the limited palette.
Okay.
Because with the 2600, you can basically change all the colors every scan line, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
but
every scan line is a new adventure.
if you change the color, you can change it while the current line's being drawn and mess up that line. So you got to do it in that little bit of time that you have between each line, and
right,
there's just not enough time to update the whole palette there. So I've been trying to figure out a good way to handle that. It's one of the things that is making Octopusher challenging in the 7800 mode. So, but fortunately, this emulator exists, and so that's been a huge help. I did Mattress Monkeys. The 7800 mode was completely developed on a real system because there was no emulator.
Oh,
so everything 7800 mode had to be tested. I had to flash the cart and run it every time I made a change, and that was quite tedious. But now I can.
difficult for troubleshooting.
Yeah. So
Bug
it's so
hunting.
nice having an emulator now where you can just quickly test stuff out.
Well, I can't find any more coins, so people have to rewatch back how when I got close to the coin and picked it up.
There's three areas. There's
Oh,
the starting area, and then there's two others.
I've only seen
There's three
two.
different wall textures.
I'll
Yeah,
have to
so
go
you're
back
lost
to this.
somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on. Nobody wants to watch me wander around a maze for that much time. It's absolutely impressive. I never thought I'd see something like that on the 7800. I mean, Ball Blaze is impressive, but now you've got walls and yeah, it's really great. So let me bring up my notes again. So let's see. Kind of covered that one. That one. So can you explain what Batari Basic is capable of with PXE? Like what can you push the limits of, you've talked about the number of sprites, let's see, the play field, like give us an outline of how far you can push the 2600 with PXE and the Chameleon Cart.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess the big thing with PXE is that you get the full width playfield. You get a scrollable playfield in all directions. And you can have up to 3 screens wide buffered.
Nice.
So if you're making a simpler game that only needs to scroll back and forth between 3 games or between 3 screens, you could do that without any kind of fancy dynamic loading. But then if you want to have a tiled playfield and you want to have a big level editor and you want to make a really big long game, you can do that, right? You've got all the space. It has the mechanisms in there to do that. You
Now
have
you say
more
three
players.
screens wide. Can you rebuffer and like keep extending the screen as the player moves along?
Right, yeah. So if you're looking to do that, you'd probably just stick with the 2 screens because the third one is just going to make things harder on you. And
Okay.
so yeah, as you scroll off the first one, you just keep filling in behind or filling in ahead,
Right.
just like you would in any other scrolling mechanism. And,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and like I said, I should be releasing a demo fairly soon where I've actually created it and done the tiled playfield where you just set your level data. Each byte is a tile basically, and it'll go in and draw those different tiles, and then you can scroll
Nice.
through it as fast as you want.
Let's see some other stuff. How, like, I think you've mentioned it before. How big of a game can you make? How much ROM do you have, and how much RAM do you have?
Right. So you have roughly 60 kilobytes, I think, give or take.
Yeah.
And then again, there's plans to extend that greatly. The additional flash you'll have to like load in and out. So you'll
Okay.
have to handle that differently. Like right now, you just got 60 kilobytes. You don't have to worry about bank switching or anything. But at some point, you're going to want to do more. It'll get a little bit trickier, but still quite manageable. And then, so you've got that. And then RAM, we just said, okay, since we're emulating the 6500 and we have the RAM available in the ARM chip, let's map some more RAM in. And so I did. And that's something else that we probably need to release a demo for, but you can use the auto dem feature that was recently added to Batari Basic, and you can point it at that extra chunk of RAM, and then you can just allocate a whole bunch of extra variables in there. So
nice.
and
So
you can
tons
like make big buffers, and it's fine. What's really nice is Gopher 2600 has some understanding of PXE.
Okay.
And so when you allocate stuff like that, you can actually see those values of those variables. Like it'll
nice.
allow you to expose what those different values are for debugging purposes.
Now, I do have the list in front of me of what it can do. Automatic horizontal masking of players 1 through 16 for all new size options. Automatic detection and color conversion for NTSC and PAL consoles. That's nice.
Yeah, so the masking I think is really helpful because especially with the scrolling playfield, you're going to
Hmm.
have the players coming on and off the screen, and you don't want them
Right.
to wrap around and show up on the other side of the screen.
Or
So
disappearing all of a
you
sudden
can
when they hit the edge, right?
you just tell it you want them to mask it, and it'll look at the position of the sprite, and basically you've got 160 pixels of screen, and so
Yeah.
then your 256 in your 8-bit value, you have some leftover, right? So you've got
Yeah.
like 96 pixels that are off screen. So 48 of those are the right side, and 48 of those are the left side.
Oh, nice.
So if you position your sprite at like -5, it's going to be coming in from the left side, and it'll get masked off on the
Oh,
right. But then if
okay.
you position your sprite at like 158, it'll straddle the right side of the screen, but it'll get masked off on the left. So
Nice.
you don't have to think about the masking at all. You just position your sprite where you want it, and as long
Hmm.
as you don't go past the 48 pixels there, you're good to go. And so it'll mask even if you have triple sprites, it'll still mask that for you.
Oh, wow. That's nice. So you can
Because
have
I felt that was really important.
so
Because
you could do
somebody's going to try to
a,
recreate.
a
Sorry.
48 wide pixel that goes a big chunk going off the screen like that, or coming on
Yeah,
from the top. Oh, wow.
yeah. So if you have the scrolling playfield, and now
Yeah.
you want to have a game, some kind of platformer where you have three enemies coming at you, you can have three enemies and they'll get masked off perfectly. You don't have to think about it. It just does it.
That's awesome. There's also color cycling as well, palette shifting. That's great.
Yeah. So when you first start up and it detects the system, it'll take the default palette, which is something you can edit, and
Okay.
it'll load that in. But then you can change those. They're in memory, so you can just write to them and change them, and so you can change the palette essentially on the
Okay.
fly.
Quadtari support. That's really great. So people can make 4-player games or 2-player plus Atari Vox, things like that.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more 4-player games.
Yeah.
Octopusher is going to be 4-player now that I've got my hands on a Quadtari, so I'm
Nice.
really looking forward to see what else people come up with. And another reason why we have so many players available is that I was contemplating, you're going to need more resources if you have 4 players.
Yeah. So let me just show people who haven't seen Asteroid Miner. We'll boot that up on the system, and this is using the PXE technology. Go. And this shows off the 8-way scrolling playfield very nicely. It just provides developers with things that they've never been able to do before very easily, right?
Yeah, this game looks so great.
It really does. It's so smooth in its scrolling, and it really elevates the 2600 quite a bit. And another game that also uses PXE as well is Plan B, New Earth.
Those are both released on physical cartridge as well.
That is correct. So, and those obviously are using the Chameleon Cart. Now, have any distributors used the Chameleon Cart, like Atari Age? Are they distributing any games on the Chameleon Cart? I guess Mattress Monkeys?
So there's Mattress Monkeys, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure about Mike's games. I don't know if he's also selling them through Atari Age or not. I know that they've at least
so
had
yet.
demos of his games at some of their booths at different shows.
Yeah. I think it was just a limited release right now through him. I think. I'm not sure. He can pipe up in the chat.
But we have been working with them to make sure that they have them available, so that if you do choose to publish to them, that it's an option.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, at the top of the show, you're talking about, you know, you wanted to have something that was available for developers, you know, PCB boards that are readily available and not limited amounts. So you have a bunch on standby for anybody who, for any developers.
Yes, I have boxes of boards.
So no problems right now with that.
We can get more fairly quickly. So we use it for our own games too. So we tend to buy, you know, large quantities. Again, helping to keep the price down. So especially when you want to release a cart, right? Like you want to have the gold fingers actually gold plated, and you know you want a really good looking cart.
Yeah.
You have to do that in large quantities, or it's just not cost effective.
True. And it is a very very nice looking PCB with a very dark board. Love the look of it. Bachman 50 says Plan B Escape Earth on Atari Age, and New Earth is coming to Atari Age. And he also needs more Chameleon carts. So you can hook him up with that. And a question from Thomas, which I think was already answered in the chat, but you can answer it as well. Any plans to add support into Stella? So what level of support does Stella have for PXE and Elf?
When you build a PXE game, it's essentially just another Elf game. Mm-hmm. You know, from the emulator's perspective, it's no different. I think some of the more recent versions where I've added in the ability to save back to the cartridge, that probably breaks Stella right now.
Okay.
But if somebody doesn't add it, I'll eventually just go in myself and do it. But yeah, the goal is to always have them available to use both Gopher 2600 and Stella, because that's the main two that people use to develop with and also just to play with.
So in terms of people reaching out for help or resources or examples, what is the best place? Is it the Elf VCS Development Club on the Atari Age forums? Do you have a Discord? Who are the main people that people can reach out to? Where do people go?
Just in the forums, anywhere is really fine. The PXE thread, the one where we announced it, I get a lot of questions in there. I always watch that one, so that's a good place to post. But you can always just create your own. And then if you don't get an answer, you can always just message me directly if nobody can help you out. So again, with the dev containers, part of the goal there is to have the entire thing in one self-contained spot, so that you have the source there and comments in the source code that you can go review that'll help out with understanding how stuff works. And also if anybody else wants to contribute and fix bugs or add features, that'll be available. So that's what I'm really trying to work towards right now.
Nice. So looking forward into the future with all of this, I know you've touched on some things with Wi-Fi and additional storage space on the cart, RAM-ROM. So what is planned in the future for PXE and the Chameleon Cart in terms of, say, software support, hardware support, games, development, advancement of the technology? What's your roadmap moving forward?
So right now there's kind of two different paths. You can go through PXE or you can go just straight C++. And so I'm trying to just merge it all together and just have one development environment, and then you can pick and choose how much of each one you want to do, and also maybe add support for other languages. Somebody might be interested in using like Rust or anything else that can compile down to machine code, right? Like just making one inclusive dev container that does it all, and so that we could just kind of consolidate everything and just make it easier to share stuff. Because especially the kernels, I find them fun to write, but I could see a lot of people would probably find them just super frustrating. So having a lot of those just available to use, and
That's
that way you can focus on making a fun game, and you're not spending 3 days figuring out how can I get this 4-line gap down to 3 lines between my sprites, you know. Let's
yes.
only do that once.
Yes, especially if somebody's optimized a kernel or made it so that it has a lot of functionality for different purposes. It's like, why do you need to reinvent the wheel? Like when I'm programming, I go out and look for code. It's like, oh, somebody has already done this. Divide by 7 or something, as an example. It's like, why should I come up with a new way to divide by 7 when somebody has definitely optimized that? So it's great to have people developing kernels for PXE that people can just call on in Batar Basic.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess that the main goal here is to just open everything up to the community to like make it accessible, you know, so that there's not one single person that everybody has to rely on, right? Like if I disappear tomorrow, the project could just go on like nothing happened. Like that's the end goal, right?
Right.
I don't plan to.
Don't disappear.
but I would like to eventually spend time working on our own games. So
Yeah. Thomas says the optimizing is the most fun part, isn't it? Well, at least for me. I don't mind optimizing too. I don't mind making kernels, but kernels take a lot of time to make sure they work right. Oh, 8-Bit Poet says, we're actively working on PXE documentation to be hosted online as well, which, maybe through your website, right? Right. At least a link from there, from Phantom Logic Studios. I know you have a somewhat of an FAQ on there, which answers some questions, but obviously you can expand that out. 8-Bit Poet says, question, James, what game will you make using PXE? Well, it won't be the next game because I want to learn a bit more about things. It certainly could be using PXE, but probably the one after that, I may dive into it and make a game in PXE because there's some very tempting things that some speed that I could definitely take advantage of for some future games that I have planned. But the next one is going to be using like bank switching. It's probably going to be a 128K game. Yeah, I want to take one step at a time. So, so let's talk about Phantom Logic Studios. That's where you keep all your games, and that's with 8-Bit Poet. So you have released Mattress Monkeys under Phantom Logic and Fly Hunter. So what is in the future for Phantom Logic? What do you have happening? I know there's a couple games that I've seen, I've played on the show. But what is the future for games in terms of Phantom Logic Studios?
Yeah, so the main one in progress right now is Octopusher, which you have played before.
Yeah.
We completely redid it. I rewrote pretty much the entire thing because I wanted to be able to push the blocks with like an animation. And then I also included optional bus stuffing.
Oh,
so
yes.
like the idea is that. Like well, so the idea with Octopusher is that like it can benefit from bus stuffing, but it doesn't have to rely on it. So it'll be a great first game to release it with it, because if it doesn't work everywhere, it's still a completely playable game. It won't take away from it.
Okay.
It'll just add to it, just like the 7800 mode, which Octopusher does have. I've been working on that. So, but the problem we had with Octopusher was you get down to the end game and you wouldn't get a game over right away, but you really had nothing you could do. You were just kind of stuck. And so we revamped the controls and the mechanics of the game. And so it's almost like a completely new game now in order to make it more playable towards the end game. And then we added Quad Atari support. So I'm really excited because it's going to be our first 4-player game. And I really hope that if you feature it in a future episode that you're able to get 3 other people to play with you, because I really want to see 4 people just trying to play this game, and it just gets so chaotic because you essentially with Octopusher you have like 260 sprites on the screen because the coral are essentially sprites, right? They're not very detailed sprites, but they're sprites nonetheless. And so being able to have that many interactive objects at once, like, it's just going to be a lot of fun, I think. So that's one that's coming soon. Elephant Squirrel, it was basically done for the 2600. That was a fun one to work on. But we wanted to also add the enhanced graphics for 7800 mode to that. So that's on the back burner as well. And then we have Bigfoot's Bluff. That's another one in progress.
Haven't seen that one yet. We've played Elephant Squirrel. We played Octopusher. But we have... I like those ads that you put, I think it was on Mattress Monkeys, for the coming soon games, and Bigfoot's Bluff was on there with what I'm showing on screen right now from your website, just a film camera or a camera taking photos of Bigfoot. The forest is swarming with photographers hoping to catch a glimpse of you, Bigfoot. You play as Bigfoot. Dash, duck, and dodge through 25 stealth challenge screens while conserving your energy and avoiding being captured on film. The mission, that's for you to discover. Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that one. It's a very unique game idea that Matthew came up with on that one, and the graphics are great as always. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
And then you have a 4th game coming up, shown on your website as well, Tiamat.
Yeah, so this one is a card game, and this is something that I'm hoping to share with everybody the kernel behind that, because we were able to get 5 columns of cards, so you could have 5 cards on a single line.
Wow.
And have decent looking cards, like they have the suit graphic icon and the numbers, and the kings and the queens and the jacks and stuff have like yellow crowns, and so it's shaping up to be pretty good, for a card game. I think it looks really good.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's like, I've always been a fan of the free cell game.
Yeah.
But doing free cell on the 2600 is not really feasible because you need 8 columns. So I figured out a good variation of that only needs 5 columns. And so that's what Tiamat's going to be.
Now, all these games coming up, are you planning to do both 2600 and 7800 versions for both? Is that kind of your plan for each game, is always have one for each system? Yeah,
I mean, I have a 7800, so I prefer to just play on that and have the better looking game. And
true.
it's something that I eventually want to introduce into PXE, because then you don't need to have flicker at all. You can just have more sprites.
Right.
So, because I'm not a fan of flicker. Like I generally will do everything I can to avoid it. And if a game has a lot of flicker, I'll probably not play it much. Yeah. But there's games that I look at them and like, hey, that's a really fun game, but it's too much eye strain for me. I just don't want to spend a lot of time playing it because of the flicker. And so I'm like, well, I want to enable these developers to also have a 7800 mode eventually, so that they don't have the flicker, and so they can create these game ideas, and then people have the option to play it in 7800 mode.
Yeah, there's definitely a tipping point with flicker. It's like, okay, if it's not all the time and it's just sometimes, characters are passing by each other, it's like, oh, okay, that's acceptable. But if it's like just full screen constant flicker all the time, it can get to be a bit much. So I definitely agree with you there. So is there anything else you like to talk about in terms of PXE and the Chameleon Cart that we didn't cover today? Because that's the end of my questions. Or if anybody has last minute questions in the chat.
Well, I just want to say that I know that there's several games in progress using PXE, and I
Oh
just can't wait
yeah.
to see them. I'm really looking forward to. I mean, because what's already been created by Mike, it just looks amazing, and they're fun games, and so I know there's other people as well that are working on ones, and I'm just really excited to see what everybody's come up with.
Yeah, I see a lot of people really excited about PXE and people saying that they're making games, but so it's gonna be fun seeing what people have put this technology to use and see how far they can push it and what new things that we've never seen before come up, and it's nice to have this alternative tech to the other side of things where it's CDF and CDFJ and CDFJ plus. Oh, back to bus stuffing. Have you solved bus stuffing completely with what you've been working on here? I know there was smatterings of talk of like, oh, there's bus stuffing detection, so they can, you know, single out bits that aren't working, and because it wasn't working on like some juniors before.
Yeah, but mine being one of them. So, so just for everybody that's not familiar with what bus stuffing is, basically you're intentionally putting contention on the 6502's data bus so that instead of having to load a value and store a value, you can just tell it store value, store value, store value, and then each time it goes to store the value, you inject what you really want it to store. So
Yeah,
you take what used to cost you 5 cycles to do it right, and you condense it down into 3.
it's so
So
awesome.
then you can do more stuff. Um, which it would be nice if it was reliable because it'd make the kernel so much easier to write if everything was 3 cycles, because
Oh
then everything
yeah.
would be nice and aligned. But so with that, one of the problems is like if your cartridge connector is dirty or for whatever reason,
Mm,
this is definitely not something the system was designed to do, right? So
right.
you kind of breaking the rules here. But I guess it was the graduate or something back in the day did this,
Yeah.
so there is some precedent for it. So what the current ELF library, which does have bus stuffing baked into it, it will try to draw stuff on the screen using bus
Mm,
stuffing, and then use collision detection to figure out, did I successfully stuff in this value or not,
right.
right?
Yes.
And
That's what was
and
happening. Yeah.
we found that like it was different values would fail. So you could write all ones, and maybe that would stuff a 0 and that work every single time. But then when you write some arbitrary value, that one
Uh,
has a failure, right? So it
uh,
actually tests every single value. So it goes 0 through 255,
wow.
checks one at a time, and then
Yeah.
says, okay, did any of these bits fail? And then, so for up to 2 bits, we can correct for by simply using different opcodes. So we can load
Okay.
up the A, the X, the Y register, and then using illegal opcodes to and the A and the X register, we can produce 4 distinct values. And so we can have 2 bits that are corrected that way. And so really you only need 6 to consistently stuff, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So the question is that good enough? And we don't know, right? Because
Mm,
it's not something I can give a bin out, say, hey, everybody, go test this in your plus cart. And then if it works for that, I can say, okay, the Chameleon cart's good to go. I can't do that
mm.
because electrically they're not the same.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the test needs to be on the same hardware, right? So we need everybody that has a dev kit to test it out.
Yeah.
Or if you get Octopusher on a physical release, you can test it out there because it's going to have it as well, right? And,
Oh,
and so,
yeah, yeah. Build it into one of your games, and then you can use that as the test bed. That's smart.
right, because Octopusher is already kind of using the whole AXY and illegal opcode in order to produce so many colors across the screen horizontally.
Yeah.
So it does that, and then it does Venetian blinds so that, because it's Octopusher, so we had to make it so that there's 8 different colors of coral, of course, because now
Right.
everything has to be 8 based. So it's very colorful, and so even without the bus stuffing, you get that color. But with the bus stuffing, there's no Venetian blinds. You just have 8 solid colors.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, but so the game, if the bus stuffing doesn't work for you, it's still a great game. It's just if it does work for you, that's a bonus. And then if it works for everybody, well, that opens the floodgates. Now we can just release bus stuffing by
Oh,
itself and rely on it, right?
That'd be
And then if the
amazing.
plus cards, or not the plus cards, the plus consoles, right? If
Yeah,
they ever gain support for ELF, there's no reason that they can't be 100% support bus stuffing.
of course, because it's just running code in an emulator. It's not going to have any errors, right?
So just like it always works in Stella and it always works in Gopher 2600, bus stuffing
So
works there
reliable.
flawlessly.
Yeah, that's great. Um, Anything else before I let you go?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I answered a lot of questions. Hopefully, we answered everyone's questions. Actually,
Yeah.
Al has a question about the dev containers. They're not
Mm.
available yet. It's the thing that I'm currently working on, and I've made it a point to reinstall my operating system and not install anything locally. So I have no choice but to get the dev containers working, or I can't build anything.
Nice.
So coming soon.
So, where can people get in contact with you if they have any questions or they need some dev kits or a massive order of chameleon carts, like 500 chameleon carts? Where can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can reach us through our website, the fandomlogicstudios.com, or you can also find me on Atari Age under Zach Attack.
Excellent. So, thank you so much for coming on, Zach. Always a pleasure to talk with you and learn more about PXE and the Chameleon Cart. And looks like a bright future for the 2600 and 7800 with many more exciting boundary pushing games. And looking forward to playing your upcoming games, Octo Pusher, on the show. And thank you for coming on.
Okay. Yeah, and I just before we sign off, I just want to mention that I know I didn't list everybody. There's been so many people that have contributed to this
Of
that
course.
one of the things that I really want to make sure is we get these dev containers that we also can properly attribute everybody and so everybody can get credit for, because it's definitely a community effort here.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's always hard to thank everybody because everybody's involved in everything, whether it's like being a developer or coding or testing or just being a player and just enjoying the games. It's one big community, and it's awesome to be part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you so
Thanks
much,
again for
Zach.
having me. It's always
Yeah,
good.
always good to have you on and talk with you about this. And I'm sure we'll talk again in the future when your new games come out.
All right, looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Talk to you soon. See you online. Bye
Thanks.
bye. There we go. Well, thank you. A big thank you to Zach for coming on and discussing all of the tech behind this. Hopefully, it gives some people some insight or a little inkling into what can be done with PXE and the Chameleon Cart. Maybe it incentivizes you to go out and maybe use it and program in Batari Basic and check out what it can do. Maybe pick up a dev kit and start playing with it. I know that it is in my future for making one of my future games because it just seems like a really great environment to work in and very, very powerful as well. But I think I'll have to learn some more stuff before. I've never used Batari Basic, so I'll have to learn that. But I mean, I programmed in a number of languages. So what is coming up on the show? I know I released a graphic recently showing the crazy amount of stuff that is going to be coming up. Let me just go to that graphic because it really outlined it nicely. And I updated it recently for everything that's coming out. So here we go. So that was today, March 27, interview with Zachary Scolaro. April 1st, not a joke, it's on Wednesday, Atari Age's 25th anniversary event, plus an interview with Albert Yarusso, Q&A with him. We'll be having a tour of the Atari Age studios, in-depth talk with him about how everything operates. We're going to be hearing from a long-time Atari Age community members. They've sent in a bunch of videos that we're going to take a look at, talking about the 25 years. On April 7th, we have the world premiere of Phoenix 7800. It is gorgeous using 320 mode. On April 10th, we have the exclusive world premiere of Quest for Tikal, a mind-blowingly gorgeous looking game on the 2600. Puzzle action type game with just oodles of screens, and it's really nice. I did beta testing on that. We also, on the same day, we have the exclusive world premiere of Wii Ninja for the Lynx. You've seen it on the 5200 and 8-bit. It's now on the Lynx. On April 14th, we have the exclusive world premiere of Vroom for the Jaguar, a 3D car racing game. It looks incredible. That's made by Cyrano J. Being released on Songbird. And Wii Ninja is also being released on Songbird. And April 14th, another Songbird game. We have the exclusive final version of Where Is It for the Jaguar. April 21st, we have the exclusive world premiere of Fantasia for the 7800 and an interview with the devs, Bruce Robert Pocock and Zephyr Pocock. They'll be live here answering questions about their new game. It's a massive RPG game for the 7800. April 24th, we have the Secret Champ game. New game. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is, but John Champeau does, and he'll be here to talk about the game with us, and we'll flick it on for the first time, and then we'll discover what it is together. On April 30th, we have a Reboot game spotlight plus an interview with Lawrence Stavely. We'll be going through the history of the company Reboot and all the games. We'll be playing a bunch of great Jaguar games then. So thanks for hanging out with us today. Thrust says, whenever I hear Vroom, I get alerted. Because he made a game called Vroom. Demo board reveal? Oh, demo board reveal, B.R. Pocock says. When we're going to be talking with him next month. So thanks for hanging out with us today on a Friday. It was very informative. I can't wait to start using this board for my own games. I've got it all right here, ready to go. I just need to learn how to program in that environment. But that'll be after my third game. My third game is going to be very large, very extensive. It's like 20 mini games in one. It's called Infinite Universe. It's right after I finish this upcoming game, which is, I'd say, halfway through being done. I'll probably have the world premiere of that game next month in April some point. I'd like to get it to a point where it's quite polished. I just need to redo the kernel, the display kernel, to put some flicker management in it. So that's just my stumbling block. The rest is very, very easy after that. So now that probably I'll do it after, I'll do the kernel after the 25th anniversary event, because there's a lot to plan for. But I've been doing programming here and there. You can follow along on my ZeroPage Club on the Atari Age forums. So thank you. Infinite Universe is a tautology, isn't it? Well, depends on your type of universe. There's some that like wrap around and we just haven't been to the edges. Or maybe it's not infinite and it just stops and there's nothing beyond that. Depends how you define universe. But it could be a tautology. But I liked it because it sounds good, and there's the same number of letters in infinite and universe, and there's no game called Infinite Universe out there. Amazingly enough. I couldn't believe it. And so thanks for hanging out with us today. Thrust26, Pseudographics, VR Polka, Splendid Nut, Dianoid, Jet Set, Illy, 8-Bit Poet, Bachman 50, Yaha Studio, Alnifer. Did I say Dianoid? Atari Warlord, BR Pocock, Ivory Tower Collections. Who else? Trey Guy. Philip Meyer. Commodore Chronicles. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back at the latest on Tuesday. We're doing a Tuesday and a Wednesday show because there's some games I want to play. because there's 2 shows where there's not really games being played. So I have to put a normal show on Tuesday. So we'll see you then with Tanya. And so have a great weekend, everyone. And see you back here on Tuesday on ZeroPage Homebrew. Bye-bye.